Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander audiences are warned that this program may contain images and sounds that could cause distress. Trucks escorted by cars with warning signs. Fred Daly, former MHR, 1980.
I remember saying to a colleague of mine once, "Where do you want the new Parliament House to be?" He said, "Don't care where it is, as long as I'm in it." But I think when that goes up, I'll be old enough to run for the Senate.
A man holding a dog under his arm.
Why go to the expense of building another Parliament House when we already got one that works reasonably well?
The convoy of cars and trucks pass a sign pointing to Canberra. Sir Billy Snedden, MHR, 1980.
This was built as a provisional Parliament House. It was intended to have a life of 50 years.
One of the trucks is hauling a long steel triangular beam supported in V-frames.
The facilities for members are dog boxes.
That Parliament wouldn't pass the Shop and Factories Act in any of the states of Australia.
Members work in about 8 by 8 rooms, and now there's a secretary rammed in there too. The only way we gave Philip Lynch an office once was to remove the toilet from Corwell's old office, and he moved into those quarters when Anthony commandeered the room he should have had.
The construction site of the new Parliament House, behind the old Parliament House, atop Capitol Hill in Canberra. 3 cranes are already in place at the cleared site.
From the time I first came up here, looking at that building, I thought, that reminds me of a wealthy South Carolina cotton farmer. And that's not Australian, it's got no Australiana about it.
Workers watch as one of the triangular beams is hoisted up by a crane. Flag mast construction begins 1st of July 1986. Senator Gareth Evans in 1980.
I think an awful lot of people were really worried that the new Parliament House would glower down forbiddingly on the nation, would be a temple or a palace or a fort. But this new Parliament House, the way it's been designed, is just not like that at all.
We made a point that there would be no step in the entrance because we wanted the transition between the outside and the inside would be as easiest as possible for everyone. There shouldn't be a feeling of a pedestal. We are just doing something on a hill. We don't do anything on a pedestal.
Aldo Gigola, principal architect. A man is welding, then John Andrews, design assessor.
There's no question that this is a place for the people of Australia, a place for them to use, a place for them to be happy with.
This was a building that the people must take to their hearts, and the resolution of that has been a constant preoccupation during our work from the design phase of the competition to the present time.
Richard Thorpe, project architect. The finished Parliament House, and the title, Open House.
They've been talking about it for 20 years, but they'd put it on the lake one time and then they'd put it on the hill according to the votes in the Senate and other places.
The focal point of the whole composition is the site of the new Houses of Parliament, proposed to stand on the southern foreshores of Lake Burley Griffin.
And those on the lakeside said you can have a royal barge come up the lake, and others said that it should be on Capitol Hill because a Parliament House should be symbolic and stand above the people. Others wanted it on this site because they said it should be symbolic, and that is at the same level as the people.
And it was only when, in the last 12 or 18 months, when the bit was taken between the teeth of certain people from both sides.
And people realised unless they coalesced on the one thing, nothing would ever happen. And from that time, that's when the serious consideration was given.
18th of September 1980. A crowd's gathered as Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser speaks from a stage in a field.
It's being built for the children of Australia, for future generations of parliamentarians. It is being built for the future of this nation. It is...
He pauses as he's heckled before the applause of the crowd drowns out the dissent.
It is therefore with very great pleasure indeed that I now turn the first sod to commence the construction phase of this magnificent project.
It's very reminiscent for him of those early photographs of Canberra, isn't it? Sort of reminiscent of 1950s.
An old black and white newsreel with the text, "Whilst aeroplanes dipped overhead, the royal salute thundered from a battery on the hill." Biplanes in the sky on the 9th of May 1927 for the opening of Provisional Parliament House. From the ceremonial guns firing to a huge plume of smoke in colour footage as the excavation begins in January 1981. Prime Minister Fraser breaks ground driving a bulldozer. Then excavators are loading rocks and dirt into the back of waiting trucks. A shirtless man in a hard hat is using a jackhammer to break up rock. John Andrews and I.M. Pay, design assessors.
I think it takes real guts to take a hill and decimate it and then put it back. That's a real gutsy thing to do. But then to put the hill back in a better way than it now exists and sort of subvert Parliament to that and allow the top of the hill to exist as a public place, that's the genius of this thing, isn't it?
Design competition result, June 1980.
Number, Mr. Chairman, is 177.
The name of the winning architect is contained in this envelope marked 177.
The envelope is handed to Sir Bernard Callanan.
The nominated architect is Mr. Richard Thorpe, the firm of Mitchell, Gergler, Thorpe Architects.
New York, 10 minutes later, a man's on the phone.
That's fantastic.
From previous information, I can tell you that Mr. Richard Thorpe is an Australian who has been working in the United States for some years.
People in the New York office celebrating. Richard Thorpe.
I felt that the design that we had come to was an excellent solution for Griffin's Canberra.
I would never allow myself the notion that we would win. I knew we would have the best scheme, but I wasn't sure whether the jury would know that. Obviously, they did.
All time in the past, man was always very proud to impose some building on top of a hill. And we wanted instead to work with the hill, to let the hill go through along the land axis, and to have the building nested into the hill itself.
Aldo Gigola. Men operating heavy machinery at the construction site, now digging down into Capitol Hill. Excavators are being used to clear out several pits in the ground. Pieces of rebar are being tied off in the early foundations. Malcolm Fraser, Prime Minister, November 1981.
The building is certainly going to inspire respect for the institution of Parliament, but at the same time is going to be a building that knows its place, it's not going to dominate, and it won't be intimidating. It will make the Capitol Hill the symbolic centre not only of Canberra, but of the entire Commonwealth. I have very great pleasure in declaring the construction stage begun.
With Prime Minister Fraser standing beside it, concrete pours down a ramp from the back of a cement truck and into a round hole in the ground. Later, other workers are pouring concrete all over crisscrossing rebar reinforcement. The foundations are being built up with a flat floor upon which sits numerous support columns. There's a tower crane in the centre of the site, one of 3 on Capitol Hill.
We wanted symbolically to be a strong building, and there is the gesture of 2 extended walls, let's say, which represent somehow the strength, gives the imprint on the ground. But then in the same time, we want to be a very kind building, almost as a sort of a hill town or something. A kind building toward the landscape, so that it absorbs, is very generous in receiving the landscape into.
The plan is so simple that it's divided into 4 parts. You have the entry for the public. On the south side, you have the entry for the executive. And to the east, the House, the west, the Senate. You can't make it more simple than that.
It absolutely fits what Walter Burley Griffin had in mind for a building on Capitol Hill. He wanted to put Parliament House on the hill, but he wasn't quite able to find the solution because he saw the hill as being a public place, a place for the people of Australia.
Even in 1927, when they built the provisional building, he said, well, you've ruined my plan, now you're going to have to do something different. When the decision was made finally to put Parliament on Capitol Hill, Well, that was the decision, to do something different.
The Griffin plan, is very clear. An extreme simplicity and clarity of the two axes.
The land axis coming through and passing beyond Capitol Hill, not stopping, and then crossing it at right angles.
The water axis.
Generated by the House chamber, going through the Senate to the Senate chamber. And then there's a third vertical axis going from the Australian flag at the top through the glass roof and going to the bottom. So there are quite a lot of things all happening simultaneously. And it's not that you throw Griffin out and bring in something new. You try and work with the spirit of Griffin.
I think if he's looking down from up there somewhere, he'll be very pleased with what you see here today.
A photo from high above Capitol Hill showing it covered in green with patches of trees. This is replaced in a time-lapse with the construction having cleared the hill of vegetation. Then Parliament House through different stages of construction, forming an hourglass shape with two curving walls narrowing the building in the middle.
Having the walls, which are non-directional, they grasp and bring together the nation of Australia to that point. And each one is holding out to the space of the land throughout that whole country to that point.
So the form of the building in itself is highly symbolic, we think. Like the built form in this case comes from the nature of the place all around. The government, too, comes from a natural condition of man. And that is probably the essence of democracy, in a sense. And that is really what we wanted to symbolize with this form.
There's a concept called sovereignty. And in the democratic concept, the people are sovereign. Now, the people can't exercise that sovereignty simultaneously. And so they elect a parliament. And unless the parliament is able to be preserved with its strength, its dignity, and the affection of the people, then the democratic process will be put into jeopardy.
But it is not a building that sits up on top of the hill and dominates everything else. And I think in that way, the democratic ideal is very beautifully expressed as far as this is concerned.
Not only can people and children clamber, in fact, right over the top of it by virtue of the grassy inclines that extend right over the top of the building. That's a pretty unusual phenomenon in any Parliament House anywhere. But also, when you come into the building, you can get access and feel a sense of access and entry.
This front screen here, it quite clearly sets itself up as a stage set and nothing else. It's a screen that is a deliberate device to relate the new building to the old building, and it's purely saying, I'm paying respect to the old building.
The new building overlooking the old. I am pay.
The public area is right here, essentially. Very simple. They know where they are. They come in through the screen into a vestibule. The vestibule has a certain scale. The vestibule has lots of columns in it, and those columns are marvelous because they remind me of the Temple of Karnak. Wonderful columns.
Marble columns flanking a straight staircase.
It gives you a sense of intimacy. The individuals is more important than the crowd. Then you enter into the reception hall, which is here. Just the opposite. No columns at all. Wide open spaces, day lit.
Now moving through 3 open doors into an atrium-like area with natural light.
And then squeeze through that space and then enter into the members' hall. All of a sudden, instead of horizontal space, it becomes a vertical space. And you look up through that skylight and see the flag.
The glass-roofed members' hall with the flag mast above.
Now, I think this sequence of spatial experience, one different from the other, is what's going to give the public a great sense of emotional reaction to the building as a building.
The pyramid-shaped glass ceiling, above which is the perfectly aligned flag mast with the 4 large steel beams that were transported by truck coming together in the center, where a flagpole sits elevated. Buses full of people and a band playing. Open day, October 1984.
One of the most rewarding experiences has been the public visiting the Parliament. to contact and to see the reaction, the question that children and mothers and people coming from all over Australia put to the architects. They were pointed, sharp, interesting, full of expectation. And we feel very responsible for that.
People file into the foyer with marble columns and 2 staircases at opposite ends.
The 2 stairs are in marble. The floor is in black and white marble in a geometric pattern. The columns, the lower part of them are in green marble. The upper part of the columns and the beams are in white plaster.
The foyer's progress from 1983 to 87.
This design really is the result of the geometry of this city. In fact, the Commonwealth is absorbed into this slope, and King's Avenue is the same, and in the back here, Adelaide Avenue also comes up.
This room, together with the other 2, can be used as part of a processional event, going through, let's say, with the Queen for the opening of a Parliament, and then turning possibly and moving into the Senate chamber.
Could we ask you to keep moving slowly through, please? Apparently there's a great deal of people behind you. The area that you're moving through at the moment, to my left, is the press gallery at 1st floor level. Directly above that at 2nd floor level, we have the press workrooms. The monitor that you see in the centre of the ceiling will allow diffuse light into the chamber during the day and is itself illuminated by the chamber lights at night.
Entering the House of Representatives chamber.
The room itself is basically defined by 4 structures that house the gallery seating on these 3 sides for the public and the press to the rear. And at the upper level of each of those is an enclosed glazed gallery, which is a soundproof situation so that tours can come through and the public and describe what's going on in the chamber without interfering with the activities.
Politics in Australia has really developed as a tradition of theatre, and the brief for the 2 chambers for the new Parliament were written as if it's to be theatre in the round. Now, the design took this into consideration from the earliest time, and we included the public galleries as if they were spectators on the political stage.
A scale model of the chamber, highlighting natural light shining down.
What about the facing material on the walls, though, where we earlier thought about having sandstone or something? I mean, do you think we can still do that with this acoustic restraint?
Yeah, well, I think we're still permitted a very hard surface on those walls. They're generally behind things. There's not that much of them showing. That's still all right.
Yeah. There's a chance we could treat the proscenium part with sandstone in isolation and treat the rest as something else so that we can see how it fits with the green tonings required in the house.
Question about the building being on schedule. 2 things have happened to change the schedule for the project marginally. One was extensions to the building, which are now necessary because of the increased numbers of members and senators.
If we can make some increase here, Tim, if we can resolve that, and that'll have to be done quickly because they're going to be wanting the footings shortly.
I'm not so sure about the way we've been talking about this relationship, because if we do this one differently than the house, we're going to have a very odd kind of condition here.
If that turns out to be true, we're going to have to change the Senate entrance.
Well, probably this whole end over here, the opposite end.
And secondly, the strike we had earlier in the year, which caused some delays greater than we would have anticipated.
The Eureka flag with a white cross and stars on blue. Below it, protest signs. 14-week stop work, February to May 1984.
And it was only after a great deal of pressure from the Minister for Employment and Industrial Relations, who in fact said that unless they were prepared to deal with their case through the Arbitration Commission, then the government would have to consider closing down the site entirely. Although they have met this morning and decided to continue on site, it's a somewhat uneasy piece at the moment.
Yeah, it'll be finished on time. If they come good with a good offer next week, there's no problems. All they'll do is serve us up with heaps of overtime, and we'll pull it out. We're Australians. We're proud of Australia too. We're quite happy to have it built by 1988. There's no worries about that.
Now a huge concrete slab is being moved by crane. A worker on scaffolding guides it past, then it's lowered in place to stack on top of other similar slabs. children holding little Australian flags, then Prime Minister R.J.L. Hawke speaking at a podium.
This stone symbolises our concepts of parliamentary democracy. It represents the base on which we may continue to build Australian democracy. I want to pay tribute to all those, including those workers on the site who have been associated with this magnificent enterprise. We are all now seeing the rewards of their labours.
Glaziers installing windows.
But those people working on that national project are going to be fairly, adequately rewarded financially, but they're also going to have a deeper satisfaction. And that deeper satisfaction is, that building, son, I worked on that. And I think that's going to help.
Sir Billy Snedden. Inside Parliament House, workers are installing timber panel walls. One of the workers.
It's great. Plenty of good blokes on here. People I work for are great. Just good conditions all the way around.
Do you like the building?
Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely.
What timbers have you used?
Well, this one here is birch, brush box, and jarrah. They're the three main ones that are in the reception hall here at the moment.
A worker pours out some flooring adhesive, then fits a small timber floorboard precisely in place and taps it down with a hammer.
Oh, I was very impressed. It's really terrific. It's good to see all the wood and all the natural things in here, as opposed from the outside you see a lot of concrete and stone, and it's really nice to see a lot of wood inside. It softens it nicely.
A column wrapped in a timber shell. Then at Rintoul Proprietary Limited Sydney, the shell is being assembled in two halves. The half shell is treated with a spray. Then at Marquetry Inlays, flowery patterns made from wood cuttings.
Well,
a bit more shading.
That's what I've done there. Like, that's meant to indent further, so that if there's some way that you can use a tone in the veneer, then you can kind of cut it that way.
Which is what we tried to do.
That's right, yeah.
We tried to do, get the dark bits in here. I just had the feeling sometimes that this was too light.
There was an interesting way, that axial design of having the first people, the Aborigines, and then the coming together. And this particular part here was the coming together. And that was the basis for making this southern wall. Banks's wall, if you like, the eucalypts and the acacia and waratahs and so on.
Painted waratahs on a timber panel. Tony Bishop, designer.
I hope I've got the right solution, philosophically as well as visually.
Yes, I'm very pleased with it.
Michael Redder, craftsman, Sydney, is carefully cutting patterns in wood using a paper stencil over the top.
It's taken me back to the earth, if you like. I've had to learn, and it's rubbed off about Australia and the plants. It's been an education, inadvertently as well.
Michael then delicately moves the leaf-like cutting of dark wood onto a lighter board and tapes it down in place. A completed board with native Australian flora recreated with wood cuttings. Michael's running a sander over the top to smooth the finish. One of the panels installed in Parliament House with plants that have long wiry brushes coming from them. Another panel has white flowers and grey flat ferns. Katrina Rumley, Curator, Arts Program.
I'm overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed by it. And I think that's the great credit to Anne and her commitment in the architect's side. Because the thing about collecting works of art, purchasing them, is so totally different from this incredible integration of art in architecture.
The timber panel artwork is installed above doorways in the foyer. Then, in a corridor with artworks just off the foyer.
Well, one thing that doesn't work is the small fair weather kangaroos. It's just completely out of scale. What say we take that out now
Okay.
and just see, Russell, would you like to fix that up? It just doesn't work in scale, I don't think. And
we're getting a really nice sort of pattern on the wall as we go from this fairly large work in the centre.
you don't think a bit more erratic spacing throughout. It's a bit sort of plonk, plonk, plonk. Central to this theme, the foyer, is the idea of journeys, the journey from the coast through to the desert or vice versa. And it's interesting that the journeys, the theme of journeys, goes into some of the commissioned works such as Graham Oldroyd and Michael Ramsden's mural, Liz Nettleton's rug, the long rug, which has the contours of a journey across Australia. And these pictures within themselves and their grouping expands on the idea of the commission work.
Small black statues.
The commission work is largely a craft, if you like, and relating to that, the actual objects, ceramic, porcelain, glassware and so on, is a point where sculpture and art and craft become one and the same.
Vases of blues and greens. Now, on a misty day at the construction site, a worker smoking a cigarette beside a small fire burning on the ground. A large wall has been finished, angled such that as it descends the slope of the hill, it steps down a tier before rising up again to the next step down. The forecourt coat of arms, designed by Robin Blau, which is the Australian coat of arms, emu and kangaroo, made of a metal frame. Designer Gordon Andrews, Sydney.
I felt very much at ease with Aldo all the time because I respected his skill and ability and also his sympathy to the designer. I knew that he wanted what I could give him, you know, and that's great because you can then perform. To make something readable from a great distance, it is necessary to make each of these elements as broad as possible. The kangaroo's ear doesn't look like that, but when this is way up there on the wall, that will look like a kangaroo's head. Over the history of making coats of arms, the supporters have always been angry beasts. I've done that with both this and the emu. Of course, the emu's a very queer fella. He's a really odd beast, and I've attempted to make him spit at you in a sense. You know, he's an angry beast.
The struggle to achieve form and space and volume with relief, to me, is Sisyphus pushing a boulder uphill. You're never getting anywhere. Why not make the bloody things in the round to start with? So there are certain contexts where that is extremely difficult, but I haven't found one yet.
Well, what's the solution for the tail there at this stage?
Well, I think just to cut a great chunk out of here and just run him straight in.
Right, well, I'll just line up, keep the tail there. Now, what we've yet got to do is to lift on this one, to lift that shoulder up, where it's in line with that one. At the moment, it's too close from there to there. Yeah, right.
Our work with models was very, very important in getting to understand the nature of this space.
I think, Philip, if we really start to think about the circulation pattern as people have come in and have gone up the stair, we should think about adding in a lift on each side for the handicapped so that they can follow the same tour through the building.
Our concern was to give expression to the structural aspect of the beam and column connection, yet at the same time not confuse that by covering that point with the marble at the top. The finished result, I think we all feel very, very good about because it gives an airiness to the room that otherwise would not have been possible.
The Embroiders Guild is working on the Great Hall embroidery.
In the one movement, no, two movements, but all in the one movement.
Right. Yes.
We don't have to.
That's quite a...
When we first looked at it, we all threw up our hands in horror and thought, this is too hard. The section leaders said, you try, and that's what we did. And even though we were nervous, we came up to it. And people have just enjoyed it so much. It's been a wonderful experience for us. And I think certainly in the ACT, embroidery will be something different in the future. And this is going on all over Australia. The other states say the same thing.
Dorothy Hislop. Now Robert Blacklow in Hobart, May 1987, is assembling the Senate chamber screen from timber.
Well, Aldo Jurgler did the design drawings, and then I converted those into workshop drawings for us to make the items of furniture. Myrtle is the basic timber that I've been using in veneer form, and the cores are made up out of local timber as well.
Philip Blacklow, at the other end of the workshop, is planing a gently curving piece of dark timber.
The pieces between Father and I are the screen, the table and the Hansard desk. The main table, it's the visual centre. So with the timbers, we've tried to lighten it so that it is a very visible piece.
From Philip planing the Senate Chamber central table to the Tapestry Studio of Australia in Melbourne.
I went along with the philosophy of the building, and that is to bring part of the Australian landscape into the building. So the design has got elements of nature, that is patterns of nature, which move from one end to the middle, and they take you on an exploration through the landscape.
Liz Nettleton, designer and weaver, is working on the 21-metre-long library reading room rug. At Established Tree Transplanters Limited in Victoria in May 1987, a man's operating a machine which grabs onto a young tree, then drives a large steel wedge into the earth aimed at the roots. Two other men dig around the base of the tree. Now workers planting outside the new Parliament House.
The people working in the building have access to the courtyards physically, both to come in and have their lunch here, but also to see them through the windows. And it's this softening of the built environment by access to the landscape that makes this the human place.
One of the transplanted trees is put into the ground.
When the government proposed to cancel the landscaping, of course this put one of the most important parts of the design at risk. And it was response by the public at large, the people of Australia, to that, which was very reassuring for us. The people, in fact, objected very strongly to the notion that the landscape would be cancelled. The government, after a while, changed their mind and said, go ahead with the landscaping. I think everyone, on coming to the building, now understands the key importance of the landscaping as an element in the design.
Mervyn Dorrer, landscape architect.
This is one of the major courtyards on the House of Representatives side of the building. It's bounded by the large dominant curved wall, the grey granite, and offices on this side over here, and at either end by the two glass links. The vegetation in here is a very important feature. The courtyards, as you can imagine, will eventually be very shaded in the winter months, so most of the trees are deciduous trees with a thin canopy so that the patterns on the ground can still be viewed through. The other major theme running through the courtyard are the eucalypts, the evergreen eucalypts. The pools are a very important feature in the courtyards. They not only create a decorative effect, but because of the noise of moving water, it deadens any other sounds that you can actually hear in the courtyards.
I loved all the little sort of gardens inside, all the relaxing little ponds and pools of water they've got there. I thought they were very nice. I think they'd be quite soothing for the fevered brows of the members and the senators, I think.
I think they'll have barbecue areas around it too, around some parts of it.
You know, there would be a place that even one could picnic. The old picnic place that was down there, it should be still someplace around. You know, there has to be this feeling that it's your place.
Almost I'll be carry on working here after I finish. Mowing the grass or something.
I can't think why they're making it so big. Is it to give employment?
And of course, if you want good legislation, the legislators have got to be clear-headed, they've got to be comfortably placed, they've got to have adequate staff available and adequate facilities. And in that way, I think this house is designed to do that.
It would be very difficult to administer it as a single project. So we split it up into nearly 30 different individual areas so that you could perhaps bring the project down to size and come to terms with it.
There were 10 tower cranes at the peak of construction. During the course of the job, there were some 10,000 people working on the job, and some 40,000 people off the job had a role to play in the construction of this project in some small way. Several thousands of kilometres of cables and pipes, 23,000 pieces of granite on the curved walls. All of these things go to reinforce just what an enormous undertaking this project really has been.
How's the production up on the curved wall going then?
We've got our soaring rates back up. Our soaring rates are back up to about 1,200 metres a month now, so there's a big improvement there.
Terrific. That's good. With the new face that's opened up in the quarry and the better turn-off, how much longer are you going at the quarry?
Oh, right, I think another 5 to 6 weeks to see it wrapped up in the quarry. We've only got another 80 blocks to go, and I think that should be over by then.
In the quarry at Eugowra, New South Wales, May 1984, several men use a huge chisel to cut holes in a vertical line down a rock face. Then another man with a sledgehammer splits the rock. Then at Ferrobeton Limited, Canberra, the cut stone is being processed, its surface washed and polished to a reflective shine, before it's installed at the site. The two halves of a large model of Parliament House are moved apart.
Doorknobs on the project, there's over 7,000 doors on the job. There's 4,000 rooms.
David Chandler, construction manager.
When one starts to look at the checklist required for each and every one of these, the list is enormous. If one goes up and looks at the quality assurance store, where we have prototypes and samples of every component going into the job, we now have it stacked some 3 stories high with several thousand items. We are in fact going right back to where the factory assembly lines are taking place and our products are coming through. And we're identifying line production problems.
Colin Andrews.
There is absolutely no compromise in their finish and quality requirements. That makes the work, of course, more interesting, but much harder. Any thought that you might get away with the usual commercial standard, no, forget it. And that was made very clear to us. I appreciate that. That's why we like doing this sort of work.
A craftsman is assembling the lock on a desk drawer. Then in the House of Representatives, a green chamber bench is being installed, with drawers under the seats. United Carpet Manufacturers Limited, Melbourne, May 1987.
We have bales of wool coming in one side of the factory and we have finished carpet going out of the other side. The carpet is going into the House of Representative areas, member suites, corridors, committee rooms and various high office areas. Australia is under a lot of pressure at the moment. There's a lot of comments being made about the quality of Australian manufactured goods. So we have placed great importance on the quality control of the carpets.
Barry Sennan. In a production line, workers are cutting excess thread from the carpet.
One of the management techniques that has been employed on the new Parliament House project is the method of fast tracking. That's a process whereby the design and the construction are overlapped.
See, we started construction, we started levelling the site before we had any drawings at all.
Sir Bernard Callanan, Chairman, 1979 to 85.
The very last parts of the excavation that remained after we'd removed 1 million cubic metres from the old Capitol Hill. Through the basement of the new Parliament House is where all of the services are run. The air conditioning systems, hot water, gas, cold water, document movement systems, which are another extension of electronically controlled systems through the building, central waste systems, security systems, wiring, electricity. All of these services are run through this space. And this is one of the techniques that's employed on a fast-track project.
Multiple monitors.
The sound and vision systems through the project incorporate the latest technology in cameras, in sound systems, and in impaired hearing systems for the deaf people, and bring together the project's information systems, the project security systems, to bring this building up to one of the most intelligent buildings that has been built ever in Australia.
It looks like a lot of money's been spent on it, so in that sense you're comforted, because it does exude an air of class.
Australia is a country of only 15-odd million people. It's not like the United States of America that perhaps is much more able to afford the sort of building that we're building. So we want to be proud of the building. Perhaps some are trying to be more proud of it than others at the expense of the taxpayer, and that's where the authority really has had a very important role to play.
As a new chairman with a new authority in principle under me, it was appropriate that we did our own homework carefully and properly and made our assessments as we saw them as a benchmark for our measurement of performance and accountability, if you will.
Alex Morikoff, chairman, 1985 to 88. Workers are locking in panels around window panes in a curved section of the building. On the roof, several pyramid-shaped skylights are already installed.
Normally with a project you have a beginning and an end, and maybe they're only 3 years apart, and by that rate we should be finishing. It always feels to me like we're just commencing, Aldo. We're always starting the next phase of the work, and maybe it's only stressful because you don't have the relief from stress by being finished.
Now, you'll see all these purlins and that aren't tightened up. The whole steel structure is just supported in place. It hasn't been finally aligned.
Well, good luck to them.
Yeah.
They're looking up at a worker straddling a girder and bolting in several metal beams.
It's the day-to-day problems and restraints of the materials and the supply that then also pop up that add on problems for the designers, such as timber supply, a certain timber species not being available in a sufficient quantity or a sufficient quality, then requires the designer to rethink his first preference. It's these issues that occur throughout the course of the project that require constant consideration.
In the Huon Valley, Tasmania, men are milling a long plank of wood. Kevin Perkins, craftsman.
In the tree's growth pattern, there's a lot of things happen, you know, good times, bad times, distress, falling other trees and so forth. And I think those characteristics I want to put in the panel wall itself, that things aren't faultless over 600 years at all. Quite the reverse in most cases. Incorporated within the wall, there's about 20 panels, of which about 600 years would be the minimum growth needed to be able to cut that size of panel. And the accumulated age of this material is quite vast, and hopefully would have some sobering effect on those that occupy the space.
From the scale model to the actual site.
Rainforest timbers are very emotional in Australia, particularly at the moment. Of course, we don't want to indiscriminately see important rainforests decimated for the new Parliament House, but equally we think it's important that for a building so important as this one, to actually have examples in it for the benefit of future generations, perhaps 100, 200, 300 years from now, to be able to see the fine Australian timbers and the craftsmanship that went into using those timbers.
Oh, it's magnificent. That's the only way to describe it. The amount of work that's gone into it is incredible. Everything is just done properly. With the lighting, it should really liven it up. That was the whole purpose of the fiddleback veneer. From a distance, it'll really show up as it should.
No problem. Out. It's in. In. Okay. Well, you did say to tell me when it was
When it dropped in.
Very happy, very proud.
Philip Blacklow smiles, having helped his father Robert assemble the Senate chamber central table.
It's a magnificent moment. It's one that I will remember for a long, long time. Working in this chamber, completing the work.
A piece engraved, Australia.
I think we've got it right. And really, only walking up to the end of the chamber when the two panels came together, that was the first long-distance look I got at it. And that was great.
Another wipe or two on the front there.
A glass coat of arms, flanked by a sculpted timber emu and kangaroo.
In the clear edges of Robert's work, Aldo's design, those clear edges are heightened by the curves of my work, and the compensation works the other way. I can rebound off the clear edges of their work with the curves and the volumes of my stuff.
Oh, it's come
it
off
really
well.
is as if there is some plan people are following.
We actually got something right. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, the verticals are all vertical and the horizontals are horizontal.
John Smith, designer and craftsman.
I analysed what I felt the role of opposition was, which essentially I see as a more radical role than that of government, which is inherently conservative. Irrespective of what party is in power, the process is a conservative one. And so that I tried to build in some of that reference to its radical role with the use of the 45-degree planes in particular, because the angular planes are visually a destabilising element. But that sort of radical side also had to be balanced with a restraint which is inherent in the quality of the building, and the furniture has to look appropriate, next century, not just now.
The leader of the opposition suite is furnished. In March 1987, some workers are polishing the marble floor in the foyer.
Was good quality. I believe it's come from Italy. I hope.
As a machine with a cylinder on the end is wheeled across the floor, others sweep away excess water from the polishing process. A hillside in the outback, where orange soil is dotted with green bushes, is then represented in a painting as dots of yellow on brown. In Papunya, Central Australia, Indigenous mosaic designer Michael Nelson Jacamara is painting white dots around a wavy brown line.
Some people, they lost their culture, but here in Central Australia, we're very lucky to hold our Dreamtime stories. We got it in our head, well, we followed this one.
Dots in a circle with colours spreading from the centre. The forecourt mosaic test section in March 1987.
Very good.
What do you think?
Oh, very good.
Good.
Actually incised in the stone, so that
my name.
Your name.
This is Michael Nelson Jacamara.
So that there's a good line around each stone, so it makes the dot show more. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. It was a very lucky section because it had part of everything in it, so that we could see how the green worked.
Yeah, green.
How the pink worked.
Brown.
Yeah.
Yellow,
the yellow.
white.
All those pieces.
If you think that this is right, they will do exactly like that.
If you're happy with it, then that's how they go ahead.
You'll have to come out and see it again when it's all finished. Yeah.
Oh, me and Frank, we trained in the same school. School of Mosaic in Spilimbergo, which is in Friuli, north of Italy.
And when did you come to Australia?
In Australia, 1954, to do the War Memorial, the Mosaic at the War Memorial, 1954. I was coming here for 3 years. And now from 1954 to now, there are many years, 34 years. I am Australian citizen too. You see?
Aldo Rossi, mosaicist. While Aldo is crouched, brushing a darker black between spots of grey, another worker is sweeping the mosaic. Now Michael's finished mosaic in April 1988. The Victorian Tapestry Workshop in May 1987. Several large tapestries are hanging around the room, and tables are covered in different coloured rolls of yarn. Women sitting on chairs are weaving side by side.
The tapestry has been designed by Arthur Boyd, especially for the building. It's going to take 2.5 years to weave, and there's 12 weavers on the project now, and we're just about halfway through. And we started in 1985. The yarn's specially spun for us in Mount Gambier, and it's all dyed here on the premises by a full-time dyer person. Yeah, but it's mostly wool. It's almost entirely wool, with a cotton warp that is made in Australia too.
Leonie Besant, weaver. The finished tapestry being installed in the Great Hall in March 1988.
What you got to do, mate, you just got to go slowly till you get the weight, right? They don't want you to pull it off the roll. They want to wind it off the roll slowly themselves, okay? Steady. Peter. Peter, take it steady.
A worker up on scaffolding is gradually winching up a segment of the tapestry between the wall and scaffolding. Leonie and another woman are stood back and watching the tapestry being unwound from its roll on the floor.
Can't wait to get rid of that scaffold now.
A time-lapse of the scaffolding being moved across the wall as each new section of tapestry is installed. By the end, the colourful pattern, which is reminiscent of Australian bushland under a blue sky, hangs above and beside an entranceway. John Dowie, sculptor, Adelaide, September 1987.
The final drawing where I felt I had found the solution, I did at about 2 o'clock in the morning. Woke up, had this idea in my mind, rushed to the side of the bed where on occasions like this I have a strategically placed sketch pad and jotted it down. And first thing in the morning I made a wax model This is it. It's what we call a maquette. As in all commissions, you've got a job to do. It's a practical job. If it's going to be a statue of the Queen, it mustn't look like something else.
John is using a tool to carve Queen Elizabeth's head in black wax.
It's a stage where you've almost relinquished your own part in it. It's all very committed. How'd the watch band turn out? The last image I had of this work was of about 12 separate pieces of plaster that I really wasn't too sure were going to fit. And to come in and see it as a complete object in wax, which looks very close to the effect of bronze, very exciting. I'm showing the Queen wearing a long cloak. I mentioned this to the secretary and asked if Her Majesty would wear something appropriate for that. Well, she did better than that. She arrived with 3 cloaks. And one of them I can show you in this magazine thing. It's a very military-looking thing. Felt she ought to be in uniform to go with that. It certainly didn't rhyme with the diamonds.
The statue is being lifted up on the Queen's terrace.
And then this one was a full-falling black velvet, richly lined. That was for me. And so I selected it. Oh, said Her Majesty, I never wear that one. It makes me look like a magician. We all laughed so much that I forgot my butterflies, which were very present at that stage. I'd been stammering. I was in the mood and we got to work straight away.
The statue of Queen Elizabeth II, wearing a crown and cloak, is engraved with Dowie, Adelaide, 1987. Official opening, 9th of May 1988. Fighter jets fly overhead in formation, followed by helicopters. A black car pulls up to Parliament House, as crowds watch waving Australian and Aboriginal flags.
I offer my warmest congratulations to the architects, to the members of the Parliament House Construction Authority, to the contractors and subcontractors, and to the artists and craftspeople whose creative talents enrich the interior, and particularly to Michael Jacamara Nelson, whose mosaic is in the forecourt. Together, they have given the whole complex a distinctive Australian character. The laws of the Commonwealth of Australia are enacted in the name of the Queen and the 2 Houses of Parliament. It is fitting, therefore, and a great pleasure for me to offer my best wishes to all those who will be giving their service to the nation within these walls, and to declare open the new Parliament House of the Commonwealth of Australia.
The Queen and Prime Minister Hawke open the doors in unison and then step into the foyer. There are crowds all through Parliament House as the Queen and Prime Minister tour the building, followed by photographers. The Queen's statue is then unveiled for her on the terrace. The wire-framed coat of arms with Australian flag behind it. Rededication of commemoration stone, 12th of March 1988.
Our presence here today serves as a tribute to those men and women of 1913 who inaugurated the development of our national capital.
Lady Denman naming the capital Canberra. In black and white footage, cannons are fired. In 1988, guns are also fired, and a soldier's horse is spooked. Canberra in 1913, a vast and mostly untouched plain.
The limestone plains must have seemed remote from the existing centres of civilization, and the participants in this ceremony 75 years ago had in some cases, as we know, spent days journeying to this spot, apparently stuck in the middle of the bush. The hills, the trees, and wide open spaces, an emptiness scarcely broken by the few homesteads that had already been built, must, I imagine, have made even the most confident among them slightly uncertain as to whether they were really inaugurating the leading city of the nation.
Footage from 1927 with horses and some buildings, then 1936 as the city builds up with roads and automobiles. Several tall buildings and a suburban home in colour footage in 1965. Finally, in 1988, the Australian War Memorial, an Anzac parade leading towards Parliament House.
8 years ago, when we came to Canberra, we envisaged working hard for 7 years, finishing the project, and returning to the United States. Now the idea of leaving Australia is very far from our minds. I think we can see in the work that's been done on Parliament, the craftsmanship, this country is capable of scaling enormous heights.
You know, that this thing rejuvenated me for another, gave me life for another 30 years or so.
We hoo-ha'd about the Opera House. We're not thinking of now. We're thinking of 20 or 30 years ahead, and I think we've just got to look outward and onward and upward and all these things. Not get bogged down in the mundane, hopefully. We've got to face that, but let's aspire to something else.
The Members' Hall, with natural light shining in from the glass ceiling, above which flies the Australian flag.
It's much more important for an architect to do a good thing rather than a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing will be playing to the galleries. To make a good thing in a good place is to make an everlasting presence of man on earth.
What would people think 2,000 years later, coming upon the ruins of Parliament House? And Aldo described a design viewed as a ruin. People would be able to see the two curved walls, two chambers, and perhaps understand that the system of government here, the bicameral nature of the Parliament, was a balanced one.
Direction, Ian Walker. Editing, Michael Walson. Music, Simon Walker. Produced for the Parliament House Construction Authority by Film Australia. Copyright 1988.